Hey there, welcome back to the shop. This week I'm going to show you how to build this French cleat system that's behind me and show you how I mounted my tool rack right here to the wall. Last week when I did my bolt turning video, all my stuff was on a table right here to the left of my lathe, and that really became a dust bin for me, and it's been that way for a long time, and finally got around to changing that out. All my stuff hangs nicely on this wall. The only thing I didn't do is make a rack for all my different tool rests, and that's because it's nice to have them just sitting on the bed of my lathe for quick access when I need them. I don't ever turn anything that's, the 3 feet that my lathe can handle, so it's okay if they're sitting on one end of the headstock or the tailstock. That's okay with me. But all of my tools and stuff are right here where I can get to them. All my sanding stuff and the things that I don't maybe use as much are up top, but that's easy to just lift off and get to. So I think this is really going to help me. Hopefully no dust collects up in this top one, and I think it's going to be a nice space opener for the shop. But before we get started, I want to make a quick announcement. I'm going to start trying to do a wrap-up video on Monday, maybe after, starting either this week or the week after. It may be on Monday, maybe Wednesday, maybe Friday, just whenever I decide is a good day to get that out to you guys. I don't know what I'm going to call it yet, so that'll come. Just have a look out for that, and hopefully I'll just be able to maybe answer some comments, questions that I got down below, and that kind of stuff in that video. And then obviously you'll have your project the day before or a few days after. So with that out of the way, let's get started. The first thing that I did was cut the actual French cleats out of my plywood, and I made those 2 inches wide and ended up cutting them to about 23 inches long. Okay, so I've cut the French cleats that I want to mount on this wall, and if you remember last week when I did the intro, I was standing like this with my back to the wall, so this is the one that's next to it, and it's directly to the right of my lathe. I have some plans eventually to put a lumber rack on this wall behind me, so I didn't want to put this on there and have that interfere with that if I decided to do it in the future. But all I'm going to do is just kind of eyeball where I want this to go. It's not going to hang down that low. Get my level, hold it in place, and strike a line. So next I'm going to go ahead and drill some pilot holes in my 2 of the French cleats that you just saw me cut, and then we'll mount those to the wall. Alright, so with my holes drilled, I can go ahead and put my screws in. And that's not going to go anywhere. So now I can repeat that for the one that's going to go up a little bit further. After I mounted the second French cleat, I decided to screw the lathe tool holder to the wall behind the lathe just because I thought it might be a little bit easier to get to. Next, I started working on my actual French cleat system and cut out a small block and then drilled a hole in it for a dowel to mount my face shield to. Next, I could start working on the box that would hold my chuck, my faceplate, and all the other various things that I use the most on my lathe beside the actual tools. And the next series of cuts you're seeing are just me cutting out the shapes for the sides and ripping and cutting to length the tops and bottoms of the box. After cutting all my pieces to length and making sure that they fit right, I could assemble the front section, which you just saw me put on, and the top portion, both of the flat areas of the actual box. After I put this together, the angled spot presented a bit of a special challenge for me because it needed a bit of a bird's mouth joint, and without having a dual tilting table saw, I had to do that with a chisel and a shoulder plane, which you're seeing me do here. So basically what you just saw me cut was this little bird's mouth kind of joint, and that was really difficult for me to do. I don't do a whole lot of chisel and hand plane work, but if we test fit this, it actually fits really well, so I'm happy with that. It was good enough for me. There's a few gaps here and there, but you know, this is a shop project, not a piece of furniture, so that'll work. I'm going to put some glue on the edges, and we will staple, or not staple, put some pins in it to hold it in place while the glue dries. Alright, so I went ahead and attached the French cleat to the back, and I did that with a couple screws and some spacer blocks to the back as well to hold it secure to the wall. These are all the things that I want to put on this, and my faceplate and my chuck will sit on here like this, and then I'll have my various, you know, live center, my drive spur. Here's my mandrel saver for my pens. This is the Velcro for it's just a Harbor Freight sander that I use for my bowls. The push rod is going to go through here, but I want to offset the hole forward so I can pull it out at an angle and it won't interfere with the French cleat that's above this one. The screw chuck for my chuck, and my pen mandrel. So all I'm going to do next is start to measure the shanks of all these things. These three will be easy because they're all number 2 Morse tapers, so they'll all have the same size hole. This isn't big enough, but measuring, you know, the size of this screw chuck, I can get close and say I need a 3/8 hole for that. I need a 3/8 hole for that. And then these you can obviously just measure because they're not tapered in any way. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll get it mounted up on the wall. Next, I could mark out and drill all the holes that I needed for all the various things that I was going to actually put in this section of my French cleat. And unfortunately, once I got most of the things on the top drilled out, my SIM card ran out of storage, but I think you get the general idea here. After I hung the other piece of the French cleat system, I could get to work on the last portion, which was just going to be a box to hold all of the things that I don't use very often, like all my sandpaper.
One thing that I definitely learned throughout this project was that my lathe, and I'm assuming most lathes that sit on the floor, are extremely heavy. I had to move it around my shop a lot.
Alright, so that concludes this week's project. I wanted to just take a second and apologize for not having this live for you on Sunday. Last week was long with school again and stuff, and quite honestly this took me a lot longer than I thought it would. I've never done a French cleat system before, and it showed some special challenges for me, especially in that bird's mouth joint that I had to cut for this piece. But I got it done. It's a little late, but I'm going to try and have a video out for you on Sunday. I don't have a full week to work on it, so I'm going to try my best. I also want to say welcome to my new subscribers. My channel hit 150 the other day, and that's a lot of people in my mind. And I just wanted to say thank you to you all for all your feedback and all your kind comments and all of your advice for that matter as well. So I hope you enjoyed this week's project, and I'll talk to you next week.